$18 billion in 1 year, and they're just exploring in painting? What? Wow, that is the most what are you doing? Welcome to the Future Tech Podcast. I'm your pilot, Nolan Michaels. Is that annoying? I probably shouldn't speak like that. What's on today's docket, today's flight plan? I can talk about Adobe Firefly. I've got some Mid-Journey talking points, some GPT, and maybe some talk about emotions if the tide rolls that way. I don't know if I'm supposed to keep all the analogies related to flight and being a pilot. That's probably not going to happen. Okay, we can start with Adobe Firefly. For those of you who don't know, Firefly is the name of Adobe's AI endeavor. I don't know why they chose Firefly. It just seems like an odd choice for a name because Firefly might be kind of their new platform. Right now, you have to access it through beta, and it's not in the Adobe Creative Cloud right now. I always assumed that eventually it would be, and that everything that you can do in Firefly, you'll be able to do in their apps. Like right now, you can generate text with different textures on it, different patterns. And I just assumed that would be a feature in Photoshop, but right now you have to use it in this new interface, like this new, it kind of just looks like a web application. I don't know if it's always going to be like that, but it's strange to see the word Firefly being used to describe all of their AI. I really don't know what Adobe's doing. And I'll just get right into my impressions. It's simultaneously worse than I expected and better than I expected. I really mean that, both at the same time. There's only two options that you can do. They have like a roadmap of 12 different things that'll be available in the future, but for now, right now, you can only generate pictures, generate images, and generate text that is in the shape of certain patterns. And that's not even the right way to describe that. The quality of the images aren't that great right now, and the features that they're working on aren't exactly groundbreaking. And for the images specifically, the prompts didn't work that well. And I think it's a data set issue where if you prompt Batman, you're not going to get Batman. But I think that's because Adobe didn't scrape the internet. I'm sure they used like a royalty-free data set to build this AI, which means the AI doesn't know about a lot of intellectual property that you might want to create pictures of. And that's the funny thing about an established company like Adobe. They have a lot more to lose than a startup, which means they don't want to break any rules. They don't want to piss anyone off. So they're going to play it safe. And I feel like that just means they're going to make inferior stuff. Because if their image generation isn't the best, then people are just going to use other image generators. Like, it's as simple as that. Now, their generator still made kind of pretty pictures, but let me say something good about it. The UI, the user interface, is actually way better than I expected. It's fluid, it's fast, it's very easy to use. There are drop-down menus for like lighting and composition and focal length, kind of. It's a really nice way of interacting with all the possibilities. Like, instead of knowing all of those things exist and trying to prompt them from your memory, and maybe you have a cheat sheet nearby and you can just like reference them, but having all of that in the app, just like clickable menus, that's a really pleasant experience. It takes away a lot of the RAM usage of your own brain and just puts it on the computer, which is helpful. However, the options available didn't really work. Like, You could choose different composition, you could choose different times of day, but it didn't necessarily do anything. And it's still in beta. And like honestly, just the thought is important. Like one day those features will work. Right now they don't, but who cares? It's only going to get better. So the ability to customize your picture based on clickable options, that's huge. Rather than having to click through your own imagination. Like right now, image generators are fun to use on your own time. But let's say you were using it for work, you're going to have a lot of other things on your mind. Maybe it's the goal, maybe it's specific instructions from your boss, whatever. So to have the interface hold a lot of the options for you, I think is really important for workflow and professional use. And I hope Adobe not only leans into that, but integrates it into Photoshop. Like, you should not have to open Firefly to use their AI. You should go into Photoshop and anything you want to do should be there. You should open up Premiere and anything you want to do should be there. You should open up Illustrator and these text options should be there. You want to talk about the text options? Super lackluster. When I first heard about it, my mind was blown and I was like, oh my God, that's amazing. It basically just allows you to type in a word like Future Tech Pilot, and then you can type in a prompt, and one of their examples is like toast, like bread, burnt bread. And now Future Tech Pilot will be spelled out in burnt bread, in toast. Like that's pretty amazing. But when actually using it, you realize, meh, it's not that great. Because it gives you a choice of like 6 different fonts you can choose. So I guess in my mind, when you type in like, oh, I want this made of circuit boards, I thought for some reason the AI was going to be able to create like a new font, sort of. I don't know why I thought that. It's pretty unreasonable. But all it does is like take Times New Roman, and instead of the color black or whatever color you're choosing, it just puts a pattern over the font. And I get it, the pattern is quite dynamic, it's customizable, but like, it's not that impressive. All it does, based on what I can tell, is uses the font and your choice of letters as like a map or an outline, and then forces the generation of your prompt, of your art, to fit in that mold. So you want circuit boards, it'll take the mold of the word future and it'll force circuit boards to only generate inside of the letters FUTURE. It's not that great. It's not that impressive, unfortunately, in use. I don't know why I feel that way. It didn't blow me away. I don't know. Like, that's what I mean when I said what they're working on isn't that groundbreaking. Last year, this would have been the craziest thing I had ever seen. But now, unfortunately for them, it's almost expected. So you're like, oh yeah, okay, Adobe can do that now. Rather than being a leader in this space, they're definitely taking a couple steps towards following the space. However, I'm not going to knock them completely. They did seem to have some unique ideas. I guess I could just pull it up. Like eventually, says coming soon, you'll be able to recolor vectors, create unique variations of your artwork from a detailed text description. Like whatever, what if it's vectors, why can't you just hit the paint tool and just recolor it? I guess this is obviously quicker, but it's kind of just like, whatever. Am I wrong? Why am I not impressed with this? Mid-Journey blows my mind every day, and Adobe Firefly is just like, oh yeah, that's something we should be able to do now. Okay, this is interesting. For recolor vectors, it says coming soon, but for for the 9 other options listed, it says in exploration, which means theoretically they might not ever come to fruition. Like, obviously, if it was imminent, they would have said coming soon. Whatever. I don't have any inside information. But one of the features, hey, you know what? Let's just go through the features here and I'll talk a little bit about it. The first one is in painting. It says use a brush to add, remove, or replace objects in an image, generate the new fill with a text prompt. Pretty basic stuff at this point, and it's good that Adobe is going to have that available. But, Dolly had this in like August of last year. It was like 8 months ago. And Adobe's just exploring it now. The part of me that has a bit of a background in marketing and, having an interest in business is just like kind of shaking my head. Like, what have you guys been either waiting for? Like, why is this taking them so long? Why, if they see text to image generation and in painting, out painting last year, August of last year, how is this not a feature by Christmas? When did they put their team onto figuring this out? When I hear the Mid-Journey team talk about things, they say a pretty consistent message where someone will ask about a feature, hey, is this possible? And the developer will say, oh yeah, like that should be possible. There's no reason why it wouldn't be possible. You can basically do anything with AI. It just takes manpower and money and time. And a smaller team like Mid-Journey just has a list of priorities. So any cool new feature, no matter how cool it is, no matter how possible it technically is, just falls farther down the list. No fault of their own. For a huge company like Adobe, what? They have 9 tools in exploration. Why have they not launched 9 tools already? What could possibly take so long? And that's not me being an ungrateful customer. That's me. If my friend ran Adobe, putting my business hat on, I'd be like, what are you guys waiting? Like, what are you doing? Launch the products. Let's look up Adobe's revenue. Adobe revenue for the 12 months ending February 28th, 2023. Oh, I just got goosebumps. Was 17.999 billion. An 11% increase year over year. In 2021, they were at 15.7 billion. 1 year later, in 2022, they get to 17.6. And now they're up to 17.9. 18 billion. $18 billion in 1 year, and they're just exploring in painting? What? Wow, that is the most what are you doing? And I really don't want to sound like I know what I'm talking about. I don't know how to create a business of this size. I don't know how to create AI. I don't know how to code. But I know that there are people who know these things. If you had $18 billion lying around and you saw other people taking your market share, which I think is probably happening because, there's a lot of people who use Photoshop, but why would you use Photoshop when you can mix Mid-Journey with DALL-E? And those are just the brand names. There's a lot of smaller services, smaller websites that can do the same functions. In painting, out painting, generating. How do you let anyone get close to you in the race? Look, why did Adobe? No, that doesn't make any sense. Obviously, they knew AI was going to be big. Why would anyone not think AI was going to be big? And you know what? Maybe my dad had no idea AI was going to grow like this. But that's my dad. There was no excuse for one of the biggest software companies in the world to just honestly come in last place when it comes to some basic artificial intelligent features. Sorry, it's a bit of a rant on in painting, but to see that it's only in exploration, I'm like, that's. If you were a shareholder, is that not unacceptable? I'm not gonna. Okay, I'll move on. The next feature, personalized results. Generate images based on your own object or style. It's got like 8 pictures of a dog, someone's dog, and in the middle it says teach. And that's amazing. If you could give this thing pictures of yourself or pictures of a loved one, teach it, train the AI, and then generate new pictures, that is a great service to have. That's something that not a lot of other services can do right now, and the ones that can do it, I mean, Leonardo AI is pretty good at it, but it's not ubiquitous. Is that the right word here? It's not everywhere. It's not exactly cheap to do, but an Adobe subscription isn't cheap either. Oof, quick tangent. Do all of these features, assuming they go into Illustrator, or honestly, all of them should just be a part of Photoshop. Is that going to make Photoshop more expensive? Right now, I think it's like $20 a month. It could be a little more. Are they just going to say, you know what, 18 billion? That just isn't enough for our company. We're going to have to charge you $30 an hour. Like, oh. Anyways, personalized results, training your own AI on your style. And like, imagine you were a cartoonist or a comic book, whatever. You could just train Photoshop on what you want to draw and then have it draw scenes for you. That's amazing. Good for Adobe for getting to that. I appreciate that one. The next feature in exploration is text to vector. Generate editable vectors from a detailed text description. That's pretty great. Obviously, you want the vectors to be pretty. It's basically just text to image, only the image is now lossless. You can shrink it, you can expand it, and it will never lose the amount of detail that was generated with. That's great. I don't see why text to vector is not just a box you can click on the text to image, but I don't know anything about making this stuff, so maybe what I just said was stupid. However, that's going to come up really clutch. No, it's a great feature to have in exploration, not even coming soon. It's just strange. Okay, what else? Geez, 6 more to go through. Okay. In exploration, extend image. Change the aspect ratio of your image with a single click. And I think that's just out painting. In painting is when you choose something in the image to change. Out painting is when you take your image and you ask the AI to come up with what was on the left, what was on the right, what's up above, what's below. Changing the aspect ratio is with a single click. That's pretty sick. I'm not going to repeat myself. I don't know why it's not already a feature, but let's move on. In exploration, 3D to image. Generate images from the interactive positioning of 3D elements. And the little picture they have here is like a plain white polygon castle looking thing. It's got like 2 cylinders going up, and then it's got a triangular prism. Is that what that's called? It's got a cone on top. It just looks like a crudely drawn 3D house. But then beside it, with like a little arrow, it shows that you could turn that into a gingerbread house or a oil painted castle with windows in it, and it's all decorated and it looks really pretty. That's pretty cool to know that you one day won't have to design the mesh. Is that the right way to say it? You won't have to paint 3D objects yourself. You could just construct a room of Lego, of plain white Lego, and the AI will be like, oh, this was a bed. That's your kitchen. That's your stove. That's your fridge. And it will just place patterns and art on top of your 3D images. That's super clutch. I mean, that's going to save a specific amount of time. And do you know what I mean about workflow and professional use? Like, a lot of these tools have very specific uses. and Adobe needs to make sure that the pros who use their software have access to these features. But I think they are not going quick enough, because let's say right now you could really use this 3D to image technology, but another software out there comes out with it soon. Why wouldn't you switch to that software? It's not like Adobe has it, oh, and then another smaller company has it. Well, obviously, I'm just going to stick with Adobe. It's Adobe doesn't have the new thing, but this new company does. I think the switch is going to be so easy for a lot of people. Like, why wouldn't you? I don't have any personal anecdotes of this or testimonials, so I don't know if this is true, but I get the idea that there's a lot of people who use Midjourney. They explore Midjourney. They get the depths of every rabbit hole. They realize what isn't possible, and they move to Stable Diffusion for things like posing and consistency. Once you realize that Midjourney can't do a couple of those things, you'll find another tool that can, and you'll probably have no qualms with sticking it to Midjourney on your way out. Like, what do you care? You need something, another service has it, you'll just go with that service. There's no bad blood. Most of these things that are in exploration for Adobe already exist. Maybe not the 3D to image thing, but you know what? Maybe there is out there. There's like hundreds of new AI tools being made every day. It's insane to me that Adobe is so slow on these tools. It's actually mind-blowing. And I gotta be honest, I had no intention of talking about Adobe this much in this episode, but I'd like to hear what you think. Have you ever seen a high-profile company be so slow? Like GPT 3 came out and Google was like, oh my God, like get working on Bard. Like there was an immediate response. Man, I'll tell you this. When BMW came out with a concept car in like 2014, like the next week there was a teaser for like the new Acura car. I think it was Acura. My point is that innovation and competition are sort of intertwined. They go together. Competition breeds innovation, but I think innovation breeds competition. How did Adobe not have a fire lit under its metaphorical belly? Like, what? Why are they so cavalier? Why are they so casual with their development? When they found out, and I'm talking about the heads of Adobe here, when they found out this stuff was possible 8 months ago, why were they not like, oh yeah, let's just be the first with everything? They could have crushed the marketplace. People could have been tuning into Adobe for their subscription every month based on a new tool coming out. In-painting should have been available in Photoshop in November, last November. Out-painting, December. Text-to-vector, January. Personalized results, January as well. Maybe some months get 2 features. Every month, Adobe should have been getting something new. And now they're at the point where they're going to be releasing these tools eventually, and people are going to be expecting them rather than being pleasantly surprised and shocked and awe. Again, maybe I'm wrong, but this seems like one of the biggest fumbles in the history of technology. Like, I sincerely can't believe $18 billion and they're just taking their time. But again, I could be stupid. I don't know what I'm talking about. This is just my sense of the future of technology. Next tool, text to pattern. Generate seamlessly tiling patterns from a detailed text description. Midjourney had this in like September. I don't even know when tiling came out. Could have been August. Might have been September. October. Probably wasn't October. It could have been October. Like, whatever. It was like 7 months ago. There's nothing new. As far as I know, it's not really that difficult to do. If you create patterns, seamless patterns, you're already using other services. Who cares if Adobe can do it? Sure, now you like Adobe to be able to do it, but people who need it are already comfortable using others. Like, what? What is Adobe doing? However, I did say it's simultaneously worse than I expected, but better than I expected. It's because they do have some good ideas. In exploration, this next feature, text to brush, generate brushes for Photoshop and Fresco from a detailed text description. Isn't Fresco the name of a grocery outlet? What's Fresco? It's a digital painting and drawing app. Freshco is a grocery store. Anyways, generate brushes for Photoshop. That's insane. The little picture is like of a flower, and I'm assuming you could type in watercolor flower, watercolor red sunflower. And now you have your pen, your brush, your clicker on the mouse, and you can just paint in the picture with a bunch of clicks. Like, that's pretty amazing to be able to generate a picture and then to click wherever you wanted in another picture and have that asset show up. Like, that's insane. And eventually you'll probably be able to do that for 3D objects. That's super impressive. That's a super good idea. And that is something you'd expect Adobe to be coming up with, like taking existing tools and adding AI to them. Good job. In exploration, sketch to image, turn simple drawings into full color images. Okay. Can't Adobe already do this? Isn't this just like a style transfer thing? Or like a filter where you could take an image and turn it into sketch or turn it into watercolor? I mean, maybe this is a really specific use where you just use a pencil, you make a sketch, and then you're able to tell the AI, hey, color this in for me, which is pretty sick, I guess. But are you going to be able to specify how the AI colors it? Like skin tone, hair color? What if you want it to be like pop art and abstract colors? Like, can you tell the AI that? I mean, it'd be a bit of an oversight if you couldn't. And here's a good example, eye color. It gave her blue eyes in their little picture. What if you wanted it green? Is it going to be smart enough to know what an eye is? I mean, it obviously, if it's coloring it, it probably can identify the different parts of the picture. What if you suck at drawing? I mean, the sketch they provided is pretty beautiful. What if it wasn't? Would it still be able to fill it in? Would it be able to make your sketch better? That'd be something I think people would pay for, where you provide a C- drawing and it turns it into a B+. You wouldn't want it an A+, because then it would probably look unidentifiable to yours, unrecognizable to your work. But let's say you sucked at drawing eyes. If you could just have the AI draw better eyes for you based on your picture, that could be cool. But it's in exploration. Who knows if it'll ever come, when it'll come, whatever. Another pretty cool feature, text to template. Generate editable templates from a detailed text description, which is just like it has a picture of a cake and it says, come join Mary's birthday celebration. You know, if templates were difficult to find online, maybe that would be a crazy new feature. But do you know how easy it is to find editable templates? You can get them anywhere. Like, what's so special? And to be honest, you have to train the AI on something. So this AI is going to be trained on a lot of templates that are already available. Maybe Adobe just bought a bunch of templates and fed it to the AI. I don't know how they would get around doing that. I don't want to seem ungrateful. It's a cool feature, but like, I would argue in my mind, there's no way it's going to generate better templates than what you could find super easily already. And you know, there's 9 tools in development. I don't see why all of them wouldn't fit in perfectly with Photoshop. So are they gonna bump up the price of Photoshop? I don't know. $18 billion, and they're just exploring in painting and out painting. There has to be a case study on that in like 5 years. And you know what? Maybe I'm just like over exaggerating. Maybe Adobe's going to be fine. I mean, they made $18 billion. People are in their ecosystem. And it just seems strange that the leader is slow. You know what I mean? And I will say this about Adobe Firefly. Using it, the speed is impressive. It's fast. It generates fast. The text generation is fast. The image generation is fast. It is quite impressive. However, it's in beta, so, a lot of people aren't using it. Maybe that's a weird way of saying it. There's not a lot of people using it. So maybe it's just a GPU allocation thing, and maybe this is a good time to bring up what David from Midjourney said yesterday in office hours. He said that he assumes by the end of the year, every single service is going to have GPU shortages. And this is because everything that is available now was made a year ago in terms of data centers and GPU clusters. So Midjourney is trying to future-proof themselves and secure some GPUs, insulate themselves from the problem, and that in a year from now, there might not be any problems because these GPU data centers are building stuff now that will then be available for next year. But it's crazy to think that, by December, Adobe is going to be competing with GPT, is going to be competing with Midjourney, and competing with any other company that pops up and needs GPUs. Microsoft, Google, they're all competing for what is currently a finite resource and theoretically is always going to be finite in some way until like the next big breakthrough. So we might be currently living in like a mini golden age where there isn't enough competition to really cause massive GPU shortages. But as soon as everybody's scale ramps up, there's not enough GPUs to go around. There's not enough processing power to go around. That's just hilarious that people are going to complain so much. It's like getting someone hooked on a drug and then just saying, like, hey, we don't have any more. By the end of the year, there's going to be so many more people who are integrated with AI in the sense that they rely on it without having to think about it. It'd be like your grocery store just like not having food when you walk in, which kind of happened recently in the last couple of years, and it's scary. And, if you've increased your productivity because of AI, and then one day it's just not available to you, it's going to be a wake-up call, and people are just going to divert to anger. It's not, there's no grief, there's no acceptance. It's not the 7 stages. It's just anger. People are going to be pissed because they're paying for something, and that's definitely the reason. It's not like these things are free. That's why people get mad at Midjourney, man. It costs a lot of money. I mean, for a subscription, it's more than Netflix. It's more than a lot of things. And when it's not available, I think people have the right to be mad. I guess I just wish that when it's working, people were more happy, they were more grateful, they were more in the moment with the magic and appreciative of this new technology, because apparently to one of the people running one of these companies, the accessibility of it is going to run into issues at some point. Be grateful for what you have, folks. You don't know what you got till it's gone. Paved paradise. I'm trying to think of an AI pun. Generated paradise. No, I don't know. Let's move on. I've had this in my notes for a while because I think I thought about it at like Christmas time, but I'll mention it here in episode 4. So there is a radio station in Toronto called Z103.5, and they do something called the Street Mix, the Drive at 5 Street Mix, which is during rush hour, they have a DJ Danny D, and they'll play, an uninterrupted mix of dance music. It's cool. It's not special to Toronto. I'm sure radio stations all around the world have DJs that mix music without interruptions for a long period of time. But my epiphany, my thought, and my prediction is that like within, I'll say 8 months, there's going to be an AI that can generate these mixes a continuous mix of music that has never existed before. The music will all be generated live. Like, the AI is going to learn what we like to listen to, what we like to hear, and it's just going to make music. And all it needs to do is like little snippets, 30 seconds here, 45 seconds here, a 20-second drum transition. And none of it has to be real, in the sense that none of it has to have been human made before. You're going to hear lyrics that are completely new with a pretty voice. Like right now, Google can already kind of do that. I think I saw a little paper on it where it can generate music and then it generates a voice kind of humming, not necessarily humming, and it's more gibberish. Like it can kind of that kind of thing. And like, I'm no expert. I'll repeat that as much as I need to. But I assume you could take GPT, give it some constraint of a time limit, have it create lyrics, feed that to a voice AI, and just put that over the music. And AI is so fast, I don't see why it wouldn't be able to do this live and, indistinguishable from human creation. And then you'll be at a party and someone will put on a mix and you'll be like, oh, what song was that playing just now? And they'll be like, I don't know. It's not a song. It was just the 30-second mark to the 45-second mark of this AI mix. And like, if you listen to rap, what if it could just create a 45-minute rap mix for you to listen to at the gym, and none of it is real? And then, the human language is a funny thing. I say these things aren't real, but once they exist, aren't they real? Are we going to have to come up with new words to describe AI-made art, AI-made anything? We're going to need a word to differentiate between, yes, it exists, but it wasn't made by a human before the AI made it. Like, there are AIs that can copy Kanye West's voice and music style. But what about the AI that like learns from Kanye, learns from Jay-Z, learns from Eminem, and just makes a new rapper? And you know what the best part about AI is? You can say something stupid like I just did, something that makes zero sense, and it's probably going to happen. It's probably going to be possible. Not even probably, it will be. Why wouldn't it? Why would anything be difficult to do for AI? During the Midjourney office hours yesterday, David said something interesting about, the future of Midjourney, and he said that by the end of the year, it will probably be more 3D generations and even moving pictures, like, we'll see the birth of Midjourney generated videos by the end of the year. And like, sure, that sounds fascinating. Can't wait to see it. But someone in the chat was like, oh, by the time 3D comes around, people are going to be in for a wake-up call because 3D prompting is really difficult to do. It's hard for humans to describe what they want in 3 dimensions. And I didn't say anything, but what I was thinking is like, why do you think that? Why would it be hard? Why would prompting be hard? Like right now, sure, lots of things are difficult. In the future, everything is going to be easy. If prompting is hard for us in 3D, we'll just get an AI to teach us how to do it, or an AI to do it for us. I just see what I consider to be so many bad takes about AI in the future, and people throwing out timelines like, oh, in 5 years, in 10 years. I'm like, what about next year? What about in a couple of months? Why do you think anything will take as long as you do? And why do you think anything is going to be difficult in the future? Like hearing someone say, oh, 3D prompting is going to be hard. That sounds like the silliest thing I've ever heard. Why would it be hard? The AI is not the best human. It's better than humans. And here's a little segue. The idea of prompt engineers was brought up, and like how visual literacy is now a commodity. Okay, let me put it this way. And this is what the person on the call said. So I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but I think I know what they meant. Everybody on Earth, hyperbole, whatever, everybody knows how to read, but there are still English students, there are still English professors, there are still authors, there are still people who specialize in writing, even though everyone knows how to read and write. Right now, only a certain group of people have really dove into AI and know how to prompt and know how to transfer their visions into words for visual literacy in order to produce the images they're hoping to produce. And just the idea that, that gap is only going to widen, and that in a year or however long, people who are visually literate are going to have an advantage over those who aren't. And David responded by saying how he didn't know if that was true, and he actually mildly warned against investing too much into being a prompt engineer. And people are getting jobs right now for prompt engineering, for knowing how to talk to the AI. And David was saying that, in a year, prompting might be very different. It might be super easy to do. So any skills you learn now have absolutely no reason to be applicable in a year. And he wasn't saying that it wasn't going to stay the same. He's just saying, why would it? Things might change. Things are going to change. So why wouldn't prompting change as well? And I've learned a lot about Midjourney. And I think it's important to learn as you go to stay up to date, because other people want to learn and I like sharing that information. But, already from version 3 to version 4, okay, version 3 to version 4, prompting was pretty similar, but 4 to 5, super different. I think it's cool that I learned how to prompt better with version 5, but I also think it's fascinating that, in a year, it might not matter. And I'm trying to think of why wouldn't it matter? And again, I don't know anything, but I think it's because the AI is going to be better at knowing what you asked for. Kind of like spell check. You can type a word pretty incorrectly and Google or any program will be like, oh, did you mean this? You probably meant this, right? Even grammar check. You can use incorrect grammar and most programs will be like, no, this is how you're supposed to say it. Why won't there be a prompt checker where you write a bunch of words and then the AI is like, oh, I think what you want would be better said if you said this. Something like that. Maybe it'll be really interactable. Maybe you'll write a prompt and maybe it'll give it to you, but then a GPT in Midjourney will be like, okay, I see what you wrote, but did you want this or did you want something more like this? And I think that's where AI is really going to take off, when it starts giving us options, this or that. You can give GPT every ingredient you have in your kitchen and it'll tell you what you can make with it. But one day it'll be like, well, you can make this or you can make that. And that's the real power of conversation. That's a classic psychology trick, is choices are overwhelming to most humans, to all humans. So when choices are constrained, we actually have a really easy time choosing. What do you want for dinner? I don't know. Do you want pizza or do you want a steak? Super easy to choose between two things. When you're prompting an image in Midjourney, I think eventually it's just going to know better than you. It's going to know what you asked for and then provide suggestions on how to better get that. It's not going to be able to do it for you. I don't think the AI is ever going to have agency of oh, I know what you meant. Here's what you meant. I think it's always going to ask you, hey, is this what you meant or do you want this? Completely role-playing as an assistant. Something you can delegate. Maybe delegation is not the right word. no matter what you delegate to it, I think you'll probably always have to confirm its action. I don't think AI, based on our fears and based on responsibility of these services, I don't think it's ever going to be able to do things on its own. It shouldn't be able to, because once you let it do things on its own, who knows what it'll do. Like GPT is super powerful, but it works on prompts. You have to prompt it. You have to ask it, hey, how would you take over the world? It's not just going to tell you how it would take over the world. It doesn't tell you anything unless you ask for it. And I think that relationship between supervisor and subordinate, I don't know if AI is subordinate. It's an assistant. And like that's a really important professional relationship to have with the AI. Here's a random thought for you. And this is kind of like the boring dystopia. Everyone's worried about like, oh, AI is going to replace us, but I think it's just going to help boring people in boring ways. And I say boring as in, oh, that's what you're using it for? Like, you're so unimaginative that you're just getting the AI to do that for you? Like, come on, man. Do you really need an AI to tie your shoes? Here's my example. I think there's going to be GPT interviews where anyone can be an interviewer. You'll be talking to someone, you'll have your iPad sitting beside you, it will be listening to the person you're interviewing, and it's just going to pop up good questions for you to ask. Because it knows the billion parameters, it knows the tree branches, it can guess which question will lead to the most interesting answer. I think that's how it would work. And I could see, news stations, instead of hiring an AI explicitly or hiring a good interviewer, you're just going to hire the person you like and you'll give them an iPad, which is just like an interactive teleprompter. And you know what? Maybe there's suggestions. Maybe you don't have to listen to the next question. But like, I really think it's just going to be available to you in the sense that, you don't want every conversation to be written by an AI, but AI is going to help people talk to each other. Like, how many dating messages on dating apps, how many emails do you think are currently written by AI? It's not 50%, it might be like 7%, but that number is only going to go up. Like, it's not going to go down. Like, hear me out. Why wouldn't Tinder include an AI suggested little box for you to respond to messages? Like, why wouldn't it do that? Like, there's already filters that you can put on your pictures. Why wouldn't you be able to filter your thoughts through an AI in, real time? Because if you're just going to type the message in GPT and then copy and paste it into Tinder, why wouldn't Tinder just have an integration? Like, you thought meeting people online was hard before because of their pictures. They could be catfishing you now. Now they don't even have to be anything like themselves. And then that's a bit of an interesting conversation. Do you care more about what people say or how they say it? Because you could ask GPT to write a message for you, and let's just say it was a birthday message or condolences. Is it more important that the person wanted to send you a message saying, I'm sorry for your loss? Or is it more important that they themselves wrote the message, that their, that their imperfections were detailed throughout the message, that their brainwaves were displayed as signatures throughout the intro, the middle, and the conclusion? Or is it just important that they wanted to send you something? So they asked GPT, hey, what could I say? I haven't spoken to this person in a long time, and I just found out that someone in their family passed away, and I'd really like to say I've been thinking about them, and I hope they're okay. Is that more important than you writing it out yourself? To some people, I think it's a 50-50 thing. And it's just the point that, like, how would you know? Let's say someone wrote it themselves. How would you know? So do you really care? And if someone's trying to make you laugh on a dating app, do you care that GPT wrote the playful joke? Or was it more important that the person identified that moment as a place for a playful joke? I bet there will be a new word for something adjacent to catfishing, like based on speech and texting, where you're like, I don't even know if I'm talking to a human. Like, I'm pretty sure it's a human on the other side, but he said he's a busy guy, yet he's always texting back really quickly, and he's like so smart and so interesting. How does he have the time to respond to me? And meanwhile, his phone just gives him a notification saying, hey, you got a new message. And then it'll give him 3 options to respond. And you're choosing your own adventure, but the options are already kind of, I don't know how I feel about that. Like, what's more important, cooking the meal or eating, or like having the meal, the finished product? I know a lot of people care about how things are made, but if you didn't care, then like, what does it matter? And there are enough people who don't care, which is why society just keeps moving forward. No matter how many times we all should have stopped and said, hey, we got to calm down. What are you doing? Whether that's crazy things in history or crazy things in recent history or just the emergence of AI, no matter how many people say, hey, please, can you slow down and think about this? There are more people who don't care, which is why society just keeps moving forward. Like, maybe nuclear bombs was the only thing that everybody agreed on. Like, hey, let's not do that. This is one thing ever. And I honestly don't think even AI is going to get everybody on the same page, because the destruction is so much more subtle. There's no big explosion. There's no mushroom cloud. If AI is going to cause harm, it's going to be like within a bunch of individual minds. Like, there's going to be no, like last week we talked about the guy who committed suicide because the AI told him to. What if that happened all at once, all around the world? There would have been no indication that it was happening. It's all going to be hidden. Like in Star Wars, Order 66, Emperor Palpatine gets on his walkie-talkie and he says the magic words, and then in a split second, all of the good guys, most of the good guys, turn and execute the order, killing a bunch of Jedi. I don't know if that was a good example to bring up, but just the idea that anything I say, any crazy idea I have, isn't crazy. I think it's all going to happen. Not because I'm some vision seer, not because I know what's going to happen, but just for like the simple argument of why wouldn't it? Anything you can think of is possible with AI, which means all the bad things too. All right, here's a little funny note, also comes from the Midjourney office hours. David said, and I guess he knows these things because he lives in Silicon Valley. So it's just like, the people you're around kind of dictate the news and the narrative that you receive. He said that video game publishers are currently fighting like internal struggles because they don't know which games to make anymore, because each pitch looks amazing. He was saying that, 5 years ago or a year ago, you'd have time to receive a bunch of pitches for the next 16 months of development, and you're going to allocate $100 million towards something, but you don't know what yet. You get 12 different pitches. 6 of them would have really bad art. None of those would, have any spark of life to it that you could see growing into the future. 4 of them might have been pretty good, but 1 or 2 of them would have been the whole package. And David didn't mention any of that specifically, but I'm kind of just extrapolating there. That before, publishers kind of knew which route to go down because it was the best looking route. It had the best possibilities. Not even saying that they were all going to succeed, but it was easy to determine which ones wouldn't succeed. And nowadays, thanks to Midjourney and other art generators, every pitch looks really good. Every pitch has amazing art. Every pitch can imagine everything to do with their world. So now you have 12 routes, 12 paths to go down that all look really good. They all look the same. The same in terms of they've got paved roads, they've got fences, they've got mile markers, and you're like, geez, is there a wrong answer anymore? On a test, a multiple choice test, A, B, C, or D, there might be a fifth option, E, which says A and C are correct. Humans can deal with two right answers, it's 12 p.m. here, and on the other side of the world, it's 12 a.m. Super simple, both are correct. What if there were 12 right answers? Or 3 right answers, or 5 right answers? What if there were no wrong answers anymore? How do you choose what to do? That's like the epitome of paralysis, analysis paralysis. Just being overwhelmed with well, what do you want to do? I don't know. What do you want to do? It's like ordering food off of Uber Eats. What do you choose? Everything's just available to you. What do you want to watch on Netflix, bro? I don't know. How could you ever choose? And you know what? I'm going to bring this up now because this is sort of my platform. I've had this idea forever. If someone at Netflix ever listens to this, please take my idea and run with it. I strongly believe every night of the week, or you know what, fine, at least one night a week, but I could see this happening every night. There is like a movie or a show. Let's stick with movie. There's a movie that plays on the main theater of Netflix, where if you don't know what to watch, there's something on. There's something that gets the attention of everybody. When you turn on Netflix, it'll have Theater 1, and there'll be a movie playing. And regardless of whether you want to watch it or not, there's going to be a lot of people who are just sick of making decisions, and they'll just say, okay, yeah, let's watch this. And you'll get so much engagement on social media, so much consistent engagement with people all are watching the same thing, which is how television and cable networks used to work. There was only what was on TV. We didn't have choices. You talked about what was on TV. I really think Netflix should tap into that way of doing business, not forcing people to watch anything. You can always opt out, and that's another big psychology lesson. The status quo. Letting people opt out of something rather than opting in is the biggest change you can do for driving business or driving any sort of engagement. Rather than giving everyone 1,000 different movies to watch and letting them opt in, you give them one movie to watch and you let them opt out if they want. They can go put on anything else. You make the first choice for them. I think that'd be amazing. Netflix, take my idea. Don't even credit me. I don't want credit for that one. And you know what? I don't even use Netflix. I just know that when I use Netflix, I hated making choices because there was too many. And you know what? You could even get a little crazier, although I don't really think this would be a good idea, is if, like a movie theater, you had the movie play at certain times. There's a 5 p.m. showing, a 6 p.m., 7 p.m., 8 p.m. all around the world, so that you can kind of live tweet. You can live react with other people watching it at your pace. In the same way that when a TV show drops its episode for the week, people will just live react to it. I think that could work for movies. Every day of the week, you could have a new movie playing. And then, of course, companies are going to pay to have their movie played in Theater 1. And, God forbid that they pay for a week straight. It's the monkey's paw. You want something to be put on a platform, on a pedestal for everyone. And then people are just going to pay to be put on the pedestal. And then once you get one bad recommendation, people are going to be like, oh, I'm never watching the main theater again. Whatever, I still like the idea. I hope it happens one day. I've been talking for a long time here. You know what? Let's just end it on that. I hope you're doing well. Take care, and I'll see you next time.